Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I have been so excited all week to sit down and record this episode. I had so much fun, digging back into some resources to do a little deeper research to prepare. And I think that this episode is going to be really popular and really helpful because we're talking about estrogen dominance, and that is a very common problem among the clients that I work with, among the women that reach out to me about working together. And I'm excited to do a deep dive episode into it. We're going to do a series of these deep dive episodes into some various topics. And I thought that we would do estrogen dominance first. So let's get into it. I have notes, so I don't know if you can hear me flipping my pages. I'm just looking through my notes that I made. First, I want to just start off by talking about the fact that we have three different types of estrogen in our body. This is one of the things that we get to test with a Dutch test. We get a value for each of the three estrogens, and then we also get to see the way the body is metabolizing those different types of estrogen. And that information really helps us kind of connect the dots between symptoms and levels being what they are, because certain types of estrogen lead to certain types of symptoms. And I'm going to get into that a little bit as we go through the episode. Now, the main type of estrogen that we have is estradiol. And that is probably what you have heard talked about in terms of estrogen. If unless you've done some deeper research. The other two types, we have estrone and we have estriol. Um, Estriol is the weakest form of estrogen that we have, and then of course estradiol is the strongest. And this is mostly made in our ovaries, and this is really the type of estrogen that we need for, effective cycles and a proper building up of our uterine lining to get ready for a pregnancy. Now, I have done an episode in the past, and I don't have it in front of me, and I don't remember. I might be able to click back quickly. I'll try. I've done an episode in the past about the kind of the basics of your cycle and kind of what the different phases are, what happens in those phases, and some things that you might need to know in general about the cycle. I'm not going to get back into all of that today. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I was able to click back and find it really quickly. It was episode 46. The title is Understanding Your Menstrual Cycle, What's Normal and What's Not. Okay, so let's talk about the fact that I'm not sure everyone fully understands. I think there's a general understanding of this, but I want to make sure that I drive this point home. Even though we're talking about estrogen dominance today in this episode, and sometimes we see estrogen getting demonized a little bit because it is commonly linked to symptoms and estrogen dominance, I want you to know that we absolutely need estrogen, that it does good things for us, and that the natural decline of estrogen over the years and as you get into perimenopause and menopause, that drop in estrogen is actually what leads to a lot of those symptoms. So I just want you to first understand that we do need estrogen and that it does do good things for us. So I wanted to talk through those things a little bit. First of all, I've already mentioned estradiol is what builds up the endometrium for possible pregnancy. We have to have that there in order for, a fertilized egg to successfully be implanted, and then, have enough of that endometrium there to support the pregnancy. Okay, other things that estrogen is beneficial for is going to include bone health, insulin sensitivity, healthy weight management, neurotransmitter balance, sleep, mood, concentration, your memory, the health of your hair, your skin, maintaining your vaginal pH, maintaining vaginal lubrication, and then also your cardiovascular health as well. So I just want to take a second and honor the fact that estrogen does so many good things for us before we get into the symptoms that we sometimes see when someone is suffering with estrogen dominance. And unfortunately, that is common. So when you have estrogen dominance, this can lead to unwanted symptoms, and then also some other ramifications down the road if it continues to be a problem. So, first of all, if you are in an estrogen dominant state and you stay in it long term, you're not able to do something to correct that, or you don't even really realize maybe that that's your problem, so you're not working to correct it, it can lead to increasing your risk of endometrial cancer. Can also set you up to form gallstones. Clotting issues can lead to heavy bleeding, menstrual cramping. Um, it can lead you to having tender fibrocystic breasts. It, of course, impacts your mood. We've already kind of hit on that a little bit. Give you acne, cause you to develop fibroids, lead to headaches, and can also lead to weight gain and or weight loss resistance. Now, I wanted to set kind of that up first. Now I want to get into a little bit of like what estrogen dominance is or how it shows up and how we see it on testing, and then also why women develop it in the first place. So, we have kind of two different types of estrogen dominance that can exist, and we would really only know this for sure if we did testing. So, the first type of estrogen dominance that we would have would be where your estrogen level is high and your progesterone level is low. The other type of estrogen dominance that we could see would be where well, there's really three types. The other flip side of that would be that you would have high estrogen, but your progesterone is in normal range. You can also actually have estrogen dominance if both estrogen and progesterone are technically within the range, but they're both like nearing the point of being outside of the range. And so the way that I want you to think about this is actually the way that we visually see this on a Dutch report. I want you to think of like a fan dial. And if there is like, we are high on one side, low on the other, and everything in the middle is like the range where we want to be. If we have both estrogen and progesterone and these dials sitting next to one another, even if they are within the proper range, but estrogen is like almost to the point of being high, and progesterone is leaning more towards almost being low or trending low, then you are still in an estrogen dominant state because it's the relevance and kind of the ratio of estrogen to progesterone. So that's kind of three different types or categories of estrogen dominance that we can see. So, why does someone develop estrogen dominance in the first place? This is where we get into when we see this on someone's report, on their Dutch report, we're doing testing with them, or even just if we're going off of a symptom analysis only and we're trying to dig in and figure out why someone might be having so many of these symptoms that align with estrogen dominance. These are some of the root causes: obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, inflammation, stress, PCOS, elevated androgens, perimenopause, poor detox, endocrine disrupting chemicals, high alcohol intake, gut dysbiosis, or doing supplementation with DHEA, testosterone, or E2, which is your estradiol. Now, once we know that someone is in a state of estrogen dominance, we of course want to correct it and work to bring our estrogen and our progesterone back into balance with one another, where we're in a balanced state and we're not in an estrogen dominant state anymore, so that we can help mitigate some of these symptoms. So the number one thing that we want to do when we're trying to tackle this is identify the root cause if we can. And honestly, like if you think about that list that I just read through of root causes, somebody might have multiple reasons there or multiple areas that we're working on, because when it comes to hormones, you guys have heard me say so many times before that everything is like, it's like this snowball effect. This affects that, and that affects this, and this affects that also. It's very hard. And like one example that I mean by that would be someone that is obese, has insulin resistance, and also has inflammation in their body and is in a state of being very inflamed. those things commonly go hand in hand. And you kind of can't tackle one without tackling the others, which is good in a sense. But it also, I don't want to like give you the impression that we frequently can nail down to just one singular root cause, because oftentimes there's multiple reasons and multiple things that we need to work on um, that can help get this estrogen level back into range and not be in a dominant state any longer. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a little more specific of the things that we would do, ways that we tackle these root causes in general. So, number one, we're going to support detox. So, this commonly is going to look like making sure, number one, that your bowel movements are happening, that you're not constipated, that you are having full bowel movements when you do. Doing things to lower inflammation. This is going to look different for everybody, but some kind of blanket recommendations or things that we work on would be to decrease the amount of like inflammatory foods that you are eating, and be very wise and mindful with those choices. Learning even what inflammatory foods are, because, if you're just hearing that concept for the first time, you probably don't even know like what that means. We're going to work on regulating blood sugar, which goes hand in hand with decreasing inflammation because they are so interrelated. But this is like one of the big pieces I tackle with clients. I teach you how to put together a blood sugar balanced plate and meal. For some people, we're going to need to work on losing a little bit of weight. Now, I hesitate to even throw that one in here because you guys have heard me preach on this before, but we have to first get your body to a state of being and feeling safe before your body is going to like allow itself to drop weight. So sometimes that one has to be, something that we tackle a little ways down the road. Once we get your overall system kind of calmed down, feeling safe, and in a more stable state, then we can tackle the weight loss piece. And that's also not applicable to everyone. Not You do not have to be overweight or obese to have estrogen dominance. This absolutely can happen and does happen frequently in people that are of a normal and healthy weight. And then the last thing that we do that goes right hand in hand really with supporting detox would be supporting the liver. So that's going to look like, making sure again that those detox pathways are open so that our body can detox. And then also looking at where we can reduce the burden we're putting on our liver. So can we remove some of those endocrine disruptors, toxins from our home, chemicals that we're ingesting in our food? Where can we make some like tweaks to reduce that liver burden so that it's able to like work a little more efficiently? And then, of course, there's also supplements that help support these things. But I mentioned that last intentionally because I very much believe in taking a like diet and lifestyle approach to things first and then using supplements for what they're meant for. They are meant to be supplemental. They are meant to help fill the gaps and kind of help boost the things that you are doing and changing in your life. So there is kind of 3 steps to my personal method that I take my clients through when we are working together. And I wanted to talk through those just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like to work with me on something like estrogen dominance. So step number 1 is going to be a focus on nourishment, blood sugar, and your minerals. We have got to make sure that you are eating enough. We have got to make sure that you know how to put together a blood sugar balanced meal and how to tackle meals outside of your home and outside of your control. When you are eating out or you're at a party or you're at an event and you had nothing to do with the food that was prepared, like how do you put things together that's still going to support your blood sugar balance? And then, of course, we're going to tackle minerals because oftentimes minerals are at the root cause of why hormones are out of balance. Then step number 2 is going to be some work on the nervous system and stress. And this is, I never tell people that they just need to like stress less. I think that is like the most bogus, not useful, not helpful piece of advice that you can give someone. Stress is inevitable, and various forms of stress are inevitable. We are going to encounter stress in our everyday life, honestly, probably every day. And I don't need to tell you, oh, just don't worry about it. Like, you just need to, like, just chill out. Don't stress about things so much. Stop being so type A. That is not helpful to you. Instead, what I like to do for my clients is teach them, introduce them to tools that they can use to manage their stress instead of just telling you to not do it 'cause it's not helpful. And then also, nervous system goes hand in hand with that because our nervous system is kind of like what is controlling our release of cortisol, which is our stress hormone, which is obviously tied to our stress and our stress response and our stress resiliency. When we can learn how to support our nervous system, we can like love up on our nervous system, give it some TLC, and do things in a like everyday, I hesitate to say everyday practice, but like teaching the tools that help you regulate your nervous system through your normal day to day, but then also once you've practiced those tools enough and you get familiar with them enough, you're able to regulate yourself in the moment when you catch yourself being dysregulated. This is super helpful when you are like just totally triggered by something. It can be something that your kids do, your boss does, a coworker does. If you catch yourself in that moment and are able to like just bring yourself down a little bit and regulate that nervous system, it's going to help so much. And that is definitely a work in progress. That's something that you have to build up to. It's not something magically overnight that I could give you nervous system regulating tools today and you would remember to use them in the moment tomorrow, but it's a practice that you get into. And then step number 3 is going to be the detox piece where we are supporting the gut and the liver. And I feel like I've already kind of touched on why those things are so important. But again, we want the body to be able to get rid of excess estrogen that it no longer needs. We don't want estrogen that has kind of like been bound up and put into our stool for excretion, hanging out too long in our bowels for it to be reabsorbed. That happens with constipation. Um, we don't want those things to happen. And then we also want to make sure that our overall gut health is in check because that also impacts the way that our body is making and then, of course, balancing the estrogen. So I wanted to finish out this episode with some Q&A. I wanted to really know, like, what are your guys' questions? I've got 5 of them here. These are really good questions. Thank you to everyone that like submitted a question. I put up a box on my Instagram. Some people messaged me questions, and I just want to like give a plug quickly that you guys can submit questions similar to this anytime for the podcast. Like, even if it's like not on a topic that I'm currently covering or that I tell you there's an upcoming episode about, you can send me over questions anytime. And hopefully you will see that answered in the future in the form of a podcast episode, a blog post, an Instagram post, an email, something. I try to answer all of the questions that I get. Okay, so the good thing is that I feel like I have covered the answers to these questions within the episode already, but I want to just like read them and give an answer again. So the first one says, I keep hearing about estrogen dominance, but what actually causes it in the first place? Is it my body making too much estrogen or is it something else? So as I touched on earlier, there can be different types of estrogen dominance. So yeah, number 1, yes, your body can be making too much estrogen, but it also could be making a correct amount of estrogen, but it's not making enough progesterone. So the balance is off. And we wouldn't know that without doing testing for sure. This, again, one of the reasons that I really love Dutch testing because of all of the information that it gives us. Okay, question number 2. How do I know if my symptoms are from estrogen dominance or something else, like low progesterone or thyroid issues? They all seem to overlap and it's confusing. Absolutely. It definitely is confusing because you're right. So many of these symptoms do overlap, and so many of the root causes also overlap. So, again, without testing, we wouldn't know for sure if you were in a state of estrogen dominance or not. You can start to implement some of the approaches to helping correct estrogen dominance. Like you can absolutely start working on weight, your blood sugar balance, how are you sleeping, how are you managing your stress. Like those things are going to help regardless of what the specific imbalance is, because again, hormones are that snowball effect of like this rolls into this, rolls into this, rolls into this, it all impacts one another. And that's bad in the sense of like when one thing gets out of balance in a bad way, the others follow. But then as you bring things back into balance, you also have that trickle down effect of positive effects. Okay, number 3, can estrogen dominance still be an issue even if my lab work from my doctor says that my estrogen levels are normal? I loved this question because you guys have probably heard me harp on normal labs and that, so many women get dismissed because they have normal labs, and that can be labs of any kind. This question is specifically speaking to they've went to their doctor and they've gotten their estrogen level checked and it came back in the normal range. There's so many reasons why this is not a full assessment of what is going on with you. Number one, if that's the only thing that they checked, then we have no idea what your progesterone level is. So, as I've said more than once now, you can have estrogen dominance even when your estrogen level is within range because your progesterone level could be out of range or almost out of range. Um, I would also want to know, what day of your cycle were you in when you went and got the blood work done? Because if it's not tested accurately, then your results aren't accurate. And there's a specific pattern throughout your cycle of when your estrogen level is supposed to be at its highest and its lowest. And again, you can go back to episode, I think it was 46, and hear me talk through those things. The other thing that I'll say here, again, just another plug and like another reason why Dutch testing is so incredible, because we're getting all of this information together at one time. Dutch testing is specifically timed with your cycle so that you're testing at the correct time. And then we are getting estrogen, all 3 types, plus we're getting progesterone, plus we get a bunch of other things like testosterone and cortisol and all this other stuff. But then we also get to see that estrogen metabolite piece so that we know like the different ratios of the different types of estrogen that your body has within it, and then how your body is using that, and is it able to like excrete it effectively when needed, or is there some like clogs, for a lack of a better word, in that detox pathway. Okay, question number 4. I'm doing my best with nutrition and exercise. What am I missing that's still making my hormones out of whack? So common, right? To feel like you're doing all of the right things, but you're still not getting the results that you want, or you're not getting any results at all, and you're not feeling any better. And it's so frustrating because you're like, okay, I made the decision that I was going to be healthier. So maybe I'm not eating perfectly, but I am eating better than I was before. And I've also got back into exercise, and, I'm still just left feeling like crap, and I don't really understand why. So there's a lot of reasons that this can happen. Number one, have you kind of taken it too far, and maybe now you're not fueling your body with enough calories and macronutrients and micronutrients that it needs in order to effectively produce and balance hormones? Are you exercising too much or too intensely, and that is contributing more stress on your body, which is then continuing in kind of a different way to throw your hormones off? For someone that finds themselves in this spot that's like, I'm trying my dangest. Why am I not getting any results? I would absolutely encourage you to invest in getting Dutch testing and HTMA testing if you can, because again, it just helps us to see the exact data. We know exactly what to do because we have the data to back us up. Aside from that, or if you're not in a position to where you can do testing or just like not appealing to you at this time, I totally get that. I know it's not for everyone. But start looking back at you, like rewind the episode a little bit and look at those 3 steps that I talked through, that I take my clients through, and check in there and see how you're doing in those areas. And maybe you need to like back off the exercise and depending on what approach you're taking to the nutrition piece a little bit and revisit some of just like the most important foundations for that. Um, yeah. Okay. Last question. I'm going to get us wrapped up here. Is there actually a way to fix estrogen dominance for good? Or am I always going to have to manage it and more or less like deal with it? I think is what this person was like leaning towards. So the great news is that yeah, we absolutely can correct this when we know that it exists. It takes effort, it takes time, it takes intentionality. I think that it absolutely you need the testing piece to know exactly where it is you're starting from and know for sure which of those 3 categories of estrogen dominance that we're dealing with, because that's really going to dictate what direction we take in your protocol of how you tackle this and how you fix it. But yes, like if you are feeling so defeated, if you have maybe even been told, like, there's nothing else I can do for you, you probably just like want to go back on birth control and that way you won't have to deal with this, or deal with at least some of these symptoms. And that's like a whole other podcast episode for a different day. But, you know, yes, there's hope. Yes, it can be changed. Yes, it can get better. It's not, there's not a magic fix. Like, I'm not here to lead anyone to believe that we can like fully fix this in 30 days. Reminder that what you're doing today impacts your egg health 90 to 100 days from now. That's 3 cycles for most people from now. So we do have to give it time, but that's also not to say, like, a lot of my clients come to me and maybe they're not even coming to me for estrogen dominance specifically, but they just have hormone imbalance in general. And we start working on things, and typically their very next cycle, they are seeing improvements. It might not be like 100% better. Commonly, it's not, because again, we've got to give the body enough time. But they are absolutely coming back to me and being like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe how much easier this cycle was and this period was compared to what I'm used to. Thank you so much. Okay, that was the last question. I know that was a lot. This might be an episode that you want to like hit save on, come back to, listen to it a couple of times. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them. If I get enough of them, we could even do like a bonus episode maybe of just answering estrogen dominance related questions. As always, I want to give you the reminder to subscribe to the podcast. Whether this is your first time listening or not, hit that subscribe button wherever you like to listen to your podcast so that you don't miss when I release a new episode. And then I also want to give you the reminder that I have some free resources for you linked in the show notes. So if you like swipe up on your phone, or I don't know how else you guys are probably listening to podcasts, maybe on your computer, but if you scroll down into like the episode details, there are links for you. Where you can download resources from me that are going to help you get started on this journey with your hormones to bring things back into balance and get rid of some of these icky, nasty symptoms that nobody wants to have to deal with. So I hope that you'll take advantage of those. And I hope you guys have a great week. I'll talk to you next week.